Greetings. This is Arvat McLean of Speak, the Universe Listens. As a very young person, I always felt that I carried the weight of the world on my shoulders, having to make grown-up decisions in order to survive a life marked with physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. While my face was smiling on the outside, on the inside, I always secretly cried and felt miserable. However, over the years, I learned some gems that helped to turn my life around. I now get to live the life of my dreams, filled with love, travel, and wonderment. And I am absolutely passionate about sharing what I have learned with you. If you want to live your best life, tune in each week as I, along with some amazing guests, share these life-changing gems with you. Inspired to be more, do more, have more. Greetings and welcome to today's episode of Speak, the Universe Listens. Today's topic is getting to the other side of grief. And I have with me DeBorah.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you.
So I did actually want to delve into the topic of grief because that is a question that people ask a lot. Like, how do you pick up the pieces after you have lost a loved one?
Right. Yes, and you're right. That is something that everyone experiences around the world. And it's one of the many stages of emotion. I think sometimes losing someone close to you, initially you're in shock, and grief comes soon after. And the process of getting over grief can look different for everyone. But it's all, to me, in my opinion, I think it's all about being honest with yourself and how you feel, and recognizing that how you feel is valid. It's okay. So sitting with those feelings and listening to yourself, listening to, paying attention to your body and how those emotions are making you feel. That's one way to start the process of getting to the other side of grief. But knowing that it's normal, there's different things that may come up in you while you're going through grief. But they're all normal emotions, and there is a other side to it. So that's the important thing to remember and hold on to.
Yeah, and I actually think that getting over grief, moving past it, starts before you've lost anyone. And in terms of your mindset and your thinking, and how you're framing the loss of a loved one. And I actually realized this back in 2006 because my mom lost her best friend. And so, but prior to it, her best friend was in the hospital, and we were there, and at the time, the nurses say that my mom's best friend probably wouldn't live more than 2 more hours. And so it might have been like maybe 8, 9 o'clock at night.
Wow.
And so we sat there all night, and she just continued to live through the night. And so at like 7 or 8 o'clock the next morning, I had to go pay the toll, what is it called? Pay for parking.
Right.
For my car.
Right.
And so when I left, and I wasn't gone for more than 10 minutes.
Right.
When I came back, my mom's friend had passed.
Wow.
And so my mother told me, she said that people don't die just in front of anybody.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was like she waited for me to leave.
Oh, wow. Isn't that something?
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Wow, it is.
And so after that happened, maybe after about 10, 15 minutes, my mom was like, "You ready to go?" And I'm like, "No." Like, how can you leave her?
Yeah.
How can you leave her here? Like, I can't leave her here.
Right.
And my mom was like, no, she's gone. Like, that's just a shell. She's gone. And it was like once I framed it like that in my mind, like, okay, that's just a body, but her friend is
Right.
gone.
Right.
Then I was able to leave. And during that same time, there was another family member that passed as well, and was closer to someone else than the rest of us. And so I noticed that the other family member was really suffering, wherein my mom was in pain.
Yes.
And I noticed that there's a difference between pain and suffering. And so I just really kind of observed that in that situation as well in other situations. And what are the people who are suffering, what are they telling themselves versus the people who are in pain?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
That is important, an important distinction. And I never looked at it that way. But yeah, the process of getting over grief or getting to the other side of it definitely depends on what you're thinking and what you're telling yourself about the situation. That's why they say, like, suppressing it or ignoring it is not helpful, because, you know, it will pop up, it will rise at the wrong moment, you know. The emotion that you need to relieve, or the emotion that you need to allow yourself to have from grief, needs to not be suppressed, and needs to be dealt with in a healthy manner. So yeah, no negative thoughts on top of the emotions that you're already feeling that would lead to pain. And that's what you were saying in your mom's friend. Yes.
Yeah. And so I think, like, at some point in my life, because I've lost people who were close to me, but no one that's really close to me. You know, like I've lost a parent.
Right.
But my parent wasn't the parent that raised me.
Okay.
So I felt close to my dad, but not really close.
Right.
And I've lost a couple of friends.
Right.
But, you know, when you think about losing a child or a spouse, or, you know, your parent that raised you, you know,
right,
that's like a whole different level.
Absolutely.
And I was really thinking about that a few years ago, like, how, I don't think you can really prepare yourself for that, but how can you make it so that you can still be okay?
Yes.
Because I know how I was feeling back in 2014. My mom, she actually had a stroke.
Wow.
And actually, I'm not going to be able to tell you this story right now because I'm probably about to start crying.
It's okay.
But I realized back then that had she not made it, that I wouldn't have made it either. And I realized that, you know, the same with my husband.
Sure.
And so I was like, how can I go through a process now that will help me to make it if that should ever happen? And so I just started reprogramming my brain and what does death mean to me, and making a decision on what it is.
Right.
In terms of, you know, what's happening to them.
Yes.
Are they going someplace great, or is it someplace bad? Is it a sad occasion for them, or is it something that should be celebrated? And, you know, you had actually made a comment earlier in another podcast. You had mentioned that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And when I think of it like that, and I think of what my mom said about, you know, that's just a shell.
Right.
You know, she's already gone. And so I started reprogramming my brain that, okay, they haven't died. The person hasn't died. They're just not physically here anymore. Exactly. And so when I think of it like that, it makes it bearable for me. Like I can see that if they're okay, then I think I can be okay. So the first part is making sure they're okay. Then the second part for me anyway would be, now how can I figure out how to live the rest of my life without them physically being present?
Right. That's so beautifully put. And that's such a unique and healthy way, to look at the human experience, to look at life. And the fact that you mentioned like reprogramming, because most people, the majority of people, have a negative connotation when it comes to losing a loved one, and that keeps them stuck in that grief mode. When it actually happens, they're not able to move past that, move forward, because of the recording in their head on, how they're supposed to feel or how they had planned to feel when that person passes. So thank you for sharing that. That's a wonderful process. I hadn't even thought that much into, looking at how I deal with grief in that way. I've lost several people in my family, people that I was close to or not so close to, and it's kind of somewhere in the middle. And again, if I were to think of that, losing someone now or how I felt in the past, it is very easy to slip back into that being sad mode. But it's a little different of a level of sadness in comparison to grief. I think grief, those moments linger a lot longer. And then sadness is sometimes just, like you said, thinking of the possibility or thinking of the moment when you were sad, and you're kind of able to let that emotion pass. But yeah, and it's what you've done is, I think, is really important for a lot of people to sit and evaluate, what that process is going to look like for them, because it's unique to everyone and how you deal with it. And like I said, I hadn't thought about it, so it makes me, want to take some more time out, so because that day will come. It's inevitable for everyone to experience it on some level, and that would be, just like having the foresight the wherewithal to look ahead and prepare yourself for that, so that when you're here missing your loved one, you can still continue to live life in a way that they would want you to. Because everyone says that they don't cry for me when I'm gone, live life, I don't want you grieving, and they really don't.
Right.
So yeah.
Yes, I think it's so cool when I hear stories about people whose loved ones have passed, but they're still communicating with them.
Oh, yeah, that gives me chills.
Yeah,
I've heard those stories
my
too.
sister-in-law, she actually lost her mom, maybe a year and a half ago, but probably the month or maybe within 2 months of losing her mom, I asked her, I was like, do you ever, hear from your mom, or have you had any visions or anything like that? She said, my mom is always present. She was like, always. And I'm just like, Mom,
Wow.
like, can you give me some space, please?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. Mom, you better not do that to me. Don't always be present. But no, I understand how that can work, It's definitely a mindset and the connection. I think I'm assuming that you have to, in a way be open to that, to wanting that. And yeah, and it can be a beautiful thing, very comforting. Yeah. I changed my mind. You can always be around, Mom. Don't be leaving me anytime soon. But
Right.
but again, just in the reality of it will come to pass. Hopefully a long time from now. But that is a way to prepare for, the grieving process, is to remind yourself that you always can have that connection anytime you want it with that close family member, with the people that were here and now they've passed on. That's cute.
Yeah.
So she's always around.
So how do you recommend or suggest or any ideals for picking up the pieces for yourself?
Wow. to pick up the pieces for myself, just trying to think back on what I did do, and mostly it was just allowing myself to feel that emotion. I thought that was really important for me because I'm a very sensitive person anyway. I pick up on vibrations of other people very easily, so it's that makes it even more important for me to be in tune with my own emotions. So just giving myself permission and not judging myself, not judging the feelings that come or the emotions that come up, and doing healthy things to allow me to sit with those emotions but then not dwell on them. So journaling, even just having that time and space to sit with other family members and talk about the memories, the good things. It's a part of that transition of still understanding the sadness that comes along with it, but rewriting, like you said, the thoughts in your head about the grieving process.
Back in 2006, I had traveled to Africa, and one of the people that traveled along with me, she had lost her husband and her 3 sons in a car accident, so all at the same time. And she had actually lost them in 2002, but of course she was still in a state of grieving when I met her in 2006. And I just recently heard her speak, and she was speaking about everything that had happened and how she has come to this place in her life now. She's in a place full of joy. And just really taking us through the steps of how it was just that day, everything that led up to it, that whole week prior to them passing on. And one of the things that she said was her sons were asking her about heaven the week before.
Really?
Yeah.
The ones who passed?
Yes.
Wow.
So they were asking her questions, and so she was like, well, of course I didn't know the answers, but I was just making up things to kind of console them. And so her son's birthday was coming up, and so one of her sons was like, do they celebrate birthdays in heaven? And so she's like, yes, they have the best birthday, so things like that. And so one of her sons said, if you and Dad were to die, would it be okay for us to be sad? Would it be okay for us to cry? She said, of course, it'd be okay for you to cry, but don't cry for too long. She said, go outside. When you feel sad, go outside and look up in the sky, and the 2 brightest stars, those are going to be me and your dad looking down on you. And so fast forward, so he actually died before his birthday. So his birthday was the following week from when he was asking the questions. And so he died before the birthday. And but at any rate, at some point, she was, just in a state of grief, and she heard his voice. And he said, it's okay to cry, but don't cry too long, because we're okay. And at any rate, she was saying that she relied on, that she was like, there's no words that humans can say to console. There's nothing. She's like, people want to help you, but they can't. And so she said she just basically relied on God and, God's power, God's presence,
absolutely,
and then God's promises.
Beautiful. Yes. Wow. Thank you for sharing that story. I was holding the tears back. Man, but it has such a beautiful point to it, like a beautiful lesson, Wow. Very nice.
So is there anything, any ways that you can see of death actually being an inspiring thing?
Yes, I can. Although it can be hard to, experience the loss of someone you love or that you're close to, it has a way of reminding you to appreciate your life while you're here, and do you know, if it always catches you off guard. People can never be prepared for it, right? But it can remind you to make things right before it's your turn. Love those around you a little stronger, and just learn to appreciate, you know, the time that you have here while you have it.
Yeah.
And to not even really dwell upon or worry about when your last breath will be your last, because you don't know. And, you know, in the moment that you have now, that doesn't really matter. Yeah.
Yes. Well said.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining me on
Thank
this
you for having
conversation.
me again. Yes, it was a good topic.
It was a good
Yeah.
topic. And I hope there's something that you all can take from this conversation with DeBorah. And stay tuned. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. And make sure you check out my website at arvatmcclain.com. Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.